Hey everybody, and welcome to the 23rd episode of the Open One podcast. And today we're going to Sweden because I've got Minnie Barnaby joining me all the way from Sweden. And we're going to get into what actually really happened over there because you know it was very interesting. Of all the countries in the world to not go into lockdown and not really seemingly, at least on the outside, go along with all the COVID bullshit, it was quite a surprise for Sweden to be that country in Europe. I know there was, I think, Belarus as well as some other African countries, but I think the most well-known country that didn't go into lockdown was Sweden. So, Minnie, why did that happen?
So I think, well, we have something that is called grundlag, and I think that translates to constitutional law. So we have this freedom of movement law, and so that's a protected right that we have.
Yeah,
And
right.
so all these lockdowns, and I mean, we had restrictions. It's yeah, I mean, we still did have restrictions, but they were not like legally allowed to do that, to lock us in the same way that they've done in other countries.
What restrictions did you have?
I mean, we still had restriction of movement, but it's like this indirect restriction of movement, because they'll say that you don't have to get the jab, but you can't do this, this, and this if you don't get it. Like, you won't be allowed to go into clubs, or only a certain amount of people can go into restaurants. So we did have restrictions, and I'm happy that I was here, but I've still been like witnessing having some of our freedom taken away, even though we have those laws that are supposed to protect that.
Yeah, interesting.
Um,
So
yeah.
it's all sort of gone away now, though, is it, with the COVID measures at least?
Well, we actually had a press briefing yesterday um, about the rising cases of COVID-19. And what they said was that it's no longer like a danger to society, but it is still a pandemic. I don't really
Well, they're still
know.
using that word. Wow. Okay.
I don't really know how those two things go together, but that's what they
Yes.
said. And they're still pushing people to get boosted.
Okay.
Um, yeah, we're still doing COVID.
Interesting, yeah, because we're pretty much not doing it here anymore. I mean, there's still the option for people to take the vaccine if they want, but you never really hear about it now, and nobody's wearing masks anymore, thankfully, and you can do pretty much everything you want to do without having a jab. So that's really cool. Is it still any like? Do you have any? Because I know there's some form of like digital ID quite present in Sweden already, right? So
Yeah.
is there still like the is that been tied into the vaccine at all?
Well, I think Sweden is probably one of the most digitalized countries in the world, I believe. Um, we barely use cash anymore. I think cash is gonna be extinct sometime
Okay,
soon.
yeah.
There's a lot of shops that don't take cash anymore. Like, if you go to H&M, some of them don't take cash anymore, or the some of the tills in the supermarket won't take cash. You have to go to separate, like, one or two lanes to be able to pay with cash. And so everything's very tracked. So it's not like um, it's not called a social credit score system, but obviously we are tracked, because everything that we pay for and everything that we do is tracked by the from this. And yeah, we don't necessarily have a digital ID. So you can have a digital ID, but I think that's going to be more of a thing that's going to come. And I think COVID has definitely been like the excuse to push that.
Okay, so but it's not tied
Um,
into the vaccine right now at all.
I mean, you get this, like, we have this app called Kivra, and we get our like official notifications sent to Kivra. You get like your um, you can get your pay slips, you can get your receipts from the supermarket, you can get like your pension stuff all sent to this one place, and that's also the app where you have your vaccine certificate or test certificate. I don't know because I've never had a test certificate or a vaccine certificate.
Respect. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, that sounds pretty damn close to a digital ID as well. What about
Yeah.
I've only heard a little bit about this. I don't know much about it at all, but I saw that Sweden is also going for the chips in, like, is it like in your hand or something that you're literally taking it to the next level?
Well, I
Is that a
don't know
thing?
much about that, but I
Okay,
did
it can't be too
see some
prevalent then.
stuff. I did see some of that come out. I think it was around this time last year. Uh, that people were actually like putting chips under their skin to,
Yeah, that's really
store their
creepy, man.
personal data and information on, and some
Yeah.
people used it for their vaccine certificate.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yes.
It's creepy.
And so what about the political party that you have in right now? Because I remember a couple months ago, maybe a little bit longer, there was a new political party that got in. Is that right?
Well,
There was.
so
Go on.
it's one of the parties that is, it's so like confusing here in Sweden. I didn't vote for any of the normal like usual, like the most well-known parties, because I think it's all bullshit. But the ones that are now in power is like a group of a few different parties. So
Okay.
the one party that actually had the most votes is not the one that is in power. So I think the way it works here is that like some parties can like gang up together, and if they collectively have more votes than like the other side, then they get to have the power. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
within this group that have now like ganged up, I guess you could call it, um, the party within that group that had the most votes, they are not the ones that are like in charge. It's really messed up. It's like I don't really know why we're doing democracy, because the party that had the most votes is not the party that's like ruling.
It's almost like it's just a load of bullshit, isn't it?
I mean, it is bullshit. I don't know how people still think that this system is working. It's not working. It's just, I mean, we have like the red and the blue and the yellow and everything, but it's like the two wings are on the same bird. It's the
Yes.
same bullshit. But
Yes, and it is quite
people obviously
impressive
agree with that.
that people still at this point haven't woken up. I did wonder at like what was, if you could judge, like, did you have like mandates for to wear the masks?
No, we did not.
Oh, really? Okay, well
But
that's
but people would
pretty
like,
good.
I mean, me and my family, we've done a lot of protesting and
Oh yeah.
provoking and demonstration. And I've been going, like, I've had hospital appointments in the last 2 years, and I've tried to like stand my ground on not wearing a mask.
Okay.
But there's been points where it's like, am I, is it really worth? I mean, it's hard sometimes because it's like a waiting room full of people, and they're all like looking at you and like telling you to put your mask on,
I
and
just
it's
have
just
the
like,
biggest fat smiley
oh,
face, like hi, hi,
yeah.
hello. Here's a nice
But
smiley face
towards the
for you.
end, like, yeah, but towards the end, I was just like, no, I'm not wearing this mask anymore. And I never wore it on the bus or anything, and you would get looks from people, but I'm not sick, so yeah.
You sort of I can relate because here we did have mandates and then it got quite bad. It would be like you'd be the only person or nearly the only person in the supermarket not wearing a mask. But after a while, I just had the biggest smile on my face, and I don't know, people look at you, but it's like I'm wondering if they're just like kind of like, oh, I wish I could not be wearing a mask right now. Look at that guy, he looks kind of happy.
They were probably thinking that you're one of those people that is like ruining it for everyone and spreading COVID everywhere.
So your fault. Yes, maybe
Yeah.
I did get a bit of that, but yeah, I guess it's like what you have in on the inside, what you're thinking about, what you're like, what you're concerned with. Because I genuinely could see that some people, it felt like anyway, they're like, wow, that's a smiley face. I haven't seen one of those for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I mean, there are people that are not going with this mainstream narrative, and I'm so happy that I've been able to connect with some of those people, because I don't feel
Yes.
so alone in my ideas anymore. And I think it's actually, most of the people that I know today are seem to be fairly awake, or in their
Yeah.
early stages of waking up to what's really going on.
Well, that is like a silver lining that was sort of across the board, was all the COVID bullshit pushed the awake people together. They had to come together to like fight back, or even just to have someone else to talk to about all this bullshit. So you touched on something
Yeah.
that was interesting, and I was curious as well. Was there much of an activist resistance? Was there? What was it like? I did see. I remember posting some photos actually of protests in Sweden.
Yeah, I've been to quite a few. I've been to Stockholm, I went to Malmö, I've been to a handful of protests here in Gothenburg where I live, and the media always gets the numbers wrong. It's always like 100
Yeah.
or 200, or we had a great demonstration in Stockholm where about, I'd say, at least 10,000 people turned up, but
Wow.
the newspapers were saying that there was roughly 2,000, I think, or something, which is just ridiculous. Um, yeah, and yeah, I don't know what to say. It's there's definitely not a fair reporting on what's been happening at the demonstration. It's all been very peaceful, and they're making it look as though it's not in the media.
Yeah, they seem to play the exact same tricks as they do here. So I'm saying, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that I believe that everyone should be allowed to have whatever opinion they want. But the thing is that I think there's a lot of people with who are very expressive on their views on like immigration and stuff like that. And those people also tend to come to like demonstrations regarding the COVID-19 vaccine passports and all that stuff. So it's kind of been lumped together with like racist people. So they're saying that like anti-vaxxers are like racists or Nazi, or it's all being lumped into something that it's not.
Yeah, and how much of a role do you think that played in the government rolling back the COVID restrictions?
Not much.
You think so?
I don't know. I don't know. I think at this point, they I don't think they could do what they've been doing now, because I think there's more people awake. But at the time, I mean, they weren't really covering anything about the demonstrations, so I don't know how much effect it's had. But
Yeah,
at the
because that's
same
it.
time,
They'd never be like, oh, there was this big protest and we had to bend to their will, so now we're removed. You'd never hear that in the mainstream media,
no,
at least, right?
no, no. And the thing is, like, we had that press briefing, the conference yesterday, and they were still pushing this narrative that unvaccinated people should correct their choice of choosing to not get vaccinated. So we're still doing that. Um,
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So you guys didn't have it as bad, but it's going on a little bit longer, it seems.
I think, yeah, I don't know. I think all this like taking away our freedom is creeping in, and I definitely see it. Some people still can't see it, unfortunately.
So
And I
were you?
think it's going to
Oh,
get
go on.
worse and worse.
Potentially, until it gets to like a precipice and enough people wake up and start living in an alternative way and start making choices that don't sort of feed and support the very matrix that's crushing their soul and leading them into slavery. It's
Yep.
almost maybe enough, it has to get bad enough for enough people that they actually start to wake up. And I was curious actually, like, were you awake before this COVID, or was COVID what did it for you?
I don't know, but I feel like I've always felt a little bit like an outsider, like since I was little, since I was in school. I've always kind of like, I felt like an observer, um, just like taking in what's going on and listening and looking at things. And kind of always felt a bit like an alien. And my dad is very I don't know, rebellious, but he does his own thing and he has his own ideas, and my dad's from the UK, by the way.
Yes, so he gets that rebel spirit.
Yeah, it's definitely not from here, because people here are very compliant.
Yeah.
So I think I have my family to thank, because they're very like open-minded, always asking questions, and
Nice.
yeah, I think it's always been there, but definitely COVID like has really helped me to really see what's going on.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So there wasn't like a moment where it was just like ding, aha, I realized the government is corrupt. There's more to this than I see.
No, I think
Interesting.
it's always kind of been there, like this feeling that something just isn't right. That there's some people at the top that have so much, and I have so little, and I'm paying tax every month, and it's not really getting any better. Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
it's interesting. Oh, go on. Go ahead.
no, sorry, you go.
I was just going to talk about yeah, the tax system, and even though personally well, my family are very asleep, I'd say I had to wake up on my own devices, and that happened 10 years ago. But
Mm,
even now I'm still learning more about like the tax system. I knew inherently it was bullshit, and that's what first woke me up, but just how good it could actually be if we had a system where we didn't have these people at the top that are essentially just taking huge amounts of the wealth and the labor and the workforce and the energy of humanity all for themselves. It could be so incredibly better.
yeah, I mean, I don't really mind paying tax as long as it actually benefits the people,
That's the
you
key
know?
thing, right? If it actually was going to the services that it should be going to, and in many ways, I think people have sort of gotten used to slavery. They're used to the idea of, oh, I must have a job, and it doesn't matter if I don't like it, I still have to do it because that's what everyone else is doing. And then the government takes a
Yeah.
certain percentage of that away. When in reality, I think we have such a huge technological abundance possible right now that,
Mm,
and I'm learning more about this as I'm a part of Empower the People, which have got a really great deal of information about this. Um, about how we have such level of abundance right now, technology and everything. People don't actually have to work. We could have a system set up where people don't have to, they could have the choice. You could have all the basic amenities covered. And this is kind of touching on the idea of a universal basic income, but I think that's very dodgy currently, because if the government we have right now and in Sweden and around the world, like if it's the evil
mm,
people had control of this, and then it's used
yeah.
to just like, okay, you've got to do as we say or you don't get your money, that's no good. But if we actually had like transparent, actual genuine people in government, or a different kind of form of managing society, then it would just be dividends coming back from
Mm,
the corporations. The corporations would be taxed, and people in the public service would be taxed. But then anyone in the private, any citizen outside of that, wouldn't actually have to pay tax. And I'm just like, wow, that sounds really cool. When
yeah.
I like working, I like giving back, so I'd still be working. But yeah,
Yeah.
interesting, huh?
I don't mind the whole tax thing. It's just I do mind that I'm paying what, like 30% every month, 32 maybe. And I don't know, I barely even know what I'm paying. It's just like it just goes off
Just
my
goes
payroll.
before you even get to see it, eh?
Yeah. And I just feel like everything's getting worse. So it's obviously not getting better.
Yeah.
Why are people not more pissed off? Like you're still paying the same amount, and you're getting less for your money, and they're taking more freedoms away, and people still think everything's hunky dory.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it would take, if how bad it would have to get if you didn't wake up through COVID. I mean, I don't know how ridiculous some of the measures here, measures in Sweden were, but some of them here were really ridiculous. You'd have like, to protect you from COVID at Christmas time, you couldn't buy Christmas like child toys, these plastic. But in front of that, you had big cases of beer. You could buy and drink as much beer as you like. That's fine. But if you touch the
Yeah,
toys that are just behind the beer, it's gonna be very, very
yeah,
bad for COVID. It's bullshit like that. And I'm like, how do you not like think what the fuck's going on?
yeah. I thought it was funny that COVID knew how to read the time, because it's like
Yeah, yeah,
restaurants shut down at 8 o'clock, and that's when COVID comes out
exactly.
to kill everyone. I don't know. Yeah.
And so, but I was curious. So, do you think now that the current political system is still just as bad as the last people, the current political party? I mean, because there was, at least from the outside, someone there was like, oh, it's the right wing. They've got rid of the environmental agency or something. It looked like there might have been some positive movements to step away from like the green agenda a bit, but doesn't seem that that's formulating,
Mm,
eh?
well, there's a few things. I think maybe I think the thing that's controversial is the immigration policy, and so they kind of just get
Okay.
pulled off to the side because of that. But they do have some valid points. I would never vote for them, but um, I think they've been questioning like the I wouldn't say that, I don't know, the urgency of climate change, or like the greenwashing that's going on, and questioning like the science a little bit,
That
because it's
sounds
very
positive.
like, yeah, but people say that, people just jump to conclusions and say that people are like anti-government, and it's like, I mean, anti like climate measures, and it's like, it's not that, it's just that we're anti greenwashing and anti social credit score systems and carbon tracking and stuff like that.
Yes,
um
I call it the climate con, because I mean, it doesn't mean if you're against a lot of the climate change narrative that you don't love the planet and you want this place to be,
yeah,
a nice harmonious place to live in for as long as we can keep it. But then
yeah,
it's
but also, yeah,
gone.
and also they want to, since having this new shift in the government, they're trying to change some of the laws. I mean, some of the laws have been changed. They are going to have police check zones where they can stop you and they can check you for drugs with no like warrants. They're changing our freedom of speech for the press, so you can't say whatever you want in the press anymore, because you might be punished. I read that you can be punished for up to go to prison for up to 8 years if you put Sweden in a compromising position, or if you like compromise the way that
Wow.
people look on relationships with partners or countries that Sweden is working with. And I don't, when I heard that, I had like, I've tried to stay really positive, but when that came out, I just I started crying. I was like, what is going on?
They're not going to
You
put you
know?
in jail for coming on this podcast, are they?
I mean, I don't know. I hope not.
God, it can't be that bad.
It's just like the fact that they're changing the law that is, regarding free speech. It's terrifying
And
in
so
Sweden.
the activist resistance that was present throughout COVID, is that still sort of about? Is there any sort of groups or organizations that are left in any way still doing stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think people have kind of, some people might think that, oh, it's over now and COVID is done, and but there's also a lot of us that were active during the COVID stuff, and we're organizing demonstrations, we're organizing meetups, we're
Nice.
organizing we've organized an awake dating group. We've
Yes, cool.
there's stuff going on still, and I went to a demonstration in Copenhagen uh the beginning of November on Guy Fawkes Day, actually. And we had organized so that we had our own team of security, our own medical team, which was nice, because you can see that things are starting to form and organize themselves
Yes.
outside of the system.
Yeah,
Um,
that sounds like, yeah, exactly, like the foundations of a new sort of society almost. It's like we have to, in many ways, create and replace or improve every single part of society.
yeah, and it's still in a very small scale, obviously, but the fact that it's happening is a good thing, I
You say
think.
Copenhagen, that's in Denmark, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, we have a bridge between Malmö, the south of Sweden, and Copenhagen, and you
Okay,
just
I need
take
to
the train
refresh
across.
my geography. You guys are pretty close, it seems. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty cool. You can just get on the train from here, and in
Oh
four
yeah, you're
hours you're in
connected.
Denmark.
Oh yeah, I see.
Yeah, yeah,
And
it's good.
is there many awake people in Denmark as well? I'm sure I saw protests coming out of there too.
Yeah, I mean I don't know too much about Denmark,
Yeah.
but I think that they had more restrictions than we did. Uh, our prime or constitutional law is not really the same. So I think they had some kind of lockdowns. We didn't. I don't know. It's different everywhere.
But so you mentioned the Constitution. Is that taught in schools? Because when you say like the Constitution and like in the United States, they really go for it over there, and that's really awesome. Here we don't get barely a mention of like the Magna Carta or anything in our school systems.
I actually can't remember learning about it in school. That's something that I've heard of in the last 2 or 3 years. I don't think that's I could be wrong, but that's not something that I was taught in school for sure.
Okay, cool. And so, what about your own life and your own sort of spiritual beliefs? Do you have any do you practice anything like meditation or anything like that? And is there much of that in Sweden from your experience?
Um, yeah, I mean, the people that I hang out with are pretty, um, what should I call it? They're pretty, yeah, spiritual people. Um, Hippies, maybe.
Hippies, that's a fitting
Uh,
term, yes.
yeah, I mean, people who like different types of music, they like plant medicine, and people who just have like a different view on life. There's definitely a lot of those people here,
Nice.
and maybe it's because I've just like turned to that kind of um, crowd. So that's the people that those are the people that I see most of. Um, yeah.
And you mentioned plant medicine there. Have you had any experience of any of that?
Yeah.
What have you tried?
I don't know if I can say more than that.
You can on my show,
Because
but they might lock you up in
yeah,
Sweden, eh?
yeah, it's just that everything is so yeah, the drug laws in Sweden are pretty crazy.
Even if you've so if I've done it 5 years ago, I can't say that I've done it.
I don't know. I just know that like if you were to do if you were to do something, if you were
Hmm,
to like use any kind of substance and you need help and you need to like go to the hospital, or you need to call an ambulance, there will be a they will file a police report at the same
sure.
time or before
Okay.
you get help. So yeah, and
What do you think though? Do you think
it
there are, how about a different way of asking this question? Do you think there are benefits from experimenting with plant medicines?
yeah,
I think so too.
definitely.
And I was actually fascinated to learn they were like magic mushrooms, for example, weren't actually illegal in England that far back. Like it's only been like the past 10 to 20 years maximum that they actually became illegal. I'm like, why would
Yeah.
they do that? Why would the government do that? Why would they not want people taking the substance? And yet they say it's to protect your health or whatever. No, that's bullshit. So what's the real
Yeah.
reason? What's the real actual reason?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the word government means governing of the mind in if you translate it from Latin,
Yes,
and psychedelic substances alters your state of mind, and it raises your level of consciousness, and God forbid you try anything psychedelic, because you might come up with new ideas that could be
exactly right.
beneficial to everyone. So we better restrict and control and make it punishable by law to eat mushrooms that grow in the forest.
Exactly right. That
Yeah.
is exactly why I believe that they're illegal, and I actually think they can actually be great medicinal benefits. I mean, it depends like what the setting is, right? Because you could just And I've seen that people just go to a party, and I've done it myself sometimes. You just go to a party, get take much. Does that's like barely scratching the surface of what you can actually do. I've gone the complete opposite end and gone to like a ceremony, and it's been like
Yeah.
meditation and deep for inner work.
Yeah, I think for me, these are all things that should be seen with like respect, and you should be really careful with any kind of substance, if it's alcohol or whatever it is, they're all substances that alter your state of mind. And yeah, but I still think that it should be up to us to decide what we want to put in our body.
Yes.
I mean, I can choose to drink a bottle of vodka, but I'm not going to do that because that's stupid. And I could choose to, you know, snort a gram of cocaine, but I'm not going to do that because that's a bit stupid. But if I want to have a mushroom, or if I want to, um, because there's benefits to that, but I'm not allowed to do that.
Yes, and we have to wonder why alcohol is like so readily available and sort of pushed as a normal thing for society. It's like of all the drugs in the world, why alcohol be like the norm?
Yeah, but I will say that I'm pleased to see that the one TV channel that is tax funded has been releasing some pretty interesting documentaries on psychedelics, and
Oh yeah,
especially like psilocybin and MDMA,
nice.
and cannabis. So that's really exciting, and I think maybe that is because there's such a push from other countries that are starting to legalize or decriminalize cannabis, at least. So I think they kind of have to at this point look at it, but it's nowhere near where it should be.
Yes, but at least it seems to be moving in the right direction. And I remember hearing here as well that there was recently again starting some studies on how like mushrooms and can help with like PTSD. And I've heard very similar things about MDMA too. And
Yeah,
I think that used in the right setting can be very beneficial.
yeah, I would believe that.
But so do you have much of a spiritual practice yourself? Have you ever tried anything like meditation or anything like that?
um, I think I'm still quite fresh into my spiritual awakening. I feel like I'm wide awake, but I haven't really
Well, there's
figured
layers to
out.
it, eh?
Yeah, but I just haven't figured out the meditation stuff. Uh, I just can't really like get to just sit down and do that. I'm always like doing something. Uh, I should make time for it, and I should like read more about it and try to implement it. But
You might find benefit, eh? It might be good for you.
yeah,
I don't know if
I know
everyone has
I
to
know
do
that
it,
there's
but
benefits for
yeah,
sure. Yeah,
I think it's amazing. And my sort of political awakening sort of went hand in hand with my spiritual awakening. First, I woke up politically, and wasn't too long after that I first started getting into meditation and spirituality. And I find that
yeah,
uh I think there are layers. I mean, some people sort of are spiritual, then they wake up politically, but for most people, I think it seems that they start politically, then they go into spirituality. And I do think there are layers to this. It's not like you begin, you realize the government's corrupt, and then that's it, you're done. It's actually there's a whole journey to
yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. And I think as you say, they kind of go a little bit hand in hand.
I
Like
think so.
when you wake up to what's going on in the governments and institutions, you also start to wonder what else there might be that we're not taught. And I
Yeah.
think some of the religious things and this, I think we're not really taught enough about religion or spirituality, and religions that are beyond just like Christianity or Buddhism. And what about the stuff in like ancient South America, like the Incas and the Mayans and the Aztecs and the people in like Turkey, like all the stuff that Graham Hancock is talking about. We never learned about that in school.
Absolutely, yeah, and he's a great guy. I was just watching I was around a friend's place and they had on a documentary about him doing all these archaeological discoveries.
Yeah.
You seen that one?
Yeah, I just finished it today actually.
Oh yeah, okay, cool. I just
Yeah.
watched the first two episodes and it's like, wow, okay, there's these structures that are really older than we have, anything else, and we have no idea how they built them and why they built them, but they're there.
Yeah. Well, I think if you keep watching the show, you're gonna have a pretty good idea of why they're there and
Oh,
who
go on.
built
I
them.
probably won't. Why does he? What's the idea? Because I was just around the friends in
Um,
passing.
so this is a spoiler alert, but
Yeah.
um, so I think, well, he believes that there was a ancient apocalypse. So what that means is that there was like a load of meteors or impacts that came down onto Earth and obviously wiped out humanity. And
Okay,
but
so
there was,
yeah,
yeah,
not like the dinosaur one, but way more recent. Interesting.
I think that the theory is that there's been a few of these
Okay.
events,
Yeah.
and the last one was around the time of the last ice age. And so people obviously had to figure out ways of surviving, and some people hid underground, and some people hid in these huge structures, pyramids and stuff, from the serpents that came from the sky. And the serpents are probably these, the meteors falling through the sky. Um,
Interesting.
I can't really explain it fairly. You should just watch it, people. It's really good.
Yes. Uh, I do. I think actually that's another thing that's just full of lies is our history and what actually happened in our past, and I do believe that it seems quite likely that there was actually advanced civilizations before this one. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
it's like intuitively it makes sort of sense, and you hear about these myths and legends of Atlantis and Lemuria, and I don't know. It's part of me is just like, yeah, that kind of, yeah, I could see that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me that people were hunter-gatherers and building pyramids.
Yeah, right.
I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just like, I don't think people that primitive would have been capable of building such huge structures.
Yes, and then
Um,
it's like, well, how did they build them? And my concept, well, at least for the Giza ones, I'm like, well, there's either aliens or psychic powers. I can't think of anything else on how the hell they built them. I don't think it was with slaves and hammers and chisels. Uh, And when I think
yeah.
at how I think we're kind of psychically dormant right now as humanity is we've like these power we've lost a lot of what we used to have, I think, or we need to develop it again, and
Yeah,
you know.
definitely. Definitely. It's funny actually because I was wanting to go and buy some fluoride-free toothpaste, and there's a huge aisle of toothpaste, but not one of them is fluoride-free.
Oh yeah, right. That's no surprise, eh?
Yeah,
That's by design.
yeah,
Did you find
yeah,
get someone? There must be some online though, eh?
yeah. I got some online, and I think actually my teeth are looking way whiter, and not that they're very white, but they look whiter than before. And I
Sure.
have a dentist to check up next week, so it's going to be interesting to see what he thinks of my fluoride-free teeth.
Yeah, because the dentistry profession are usually they hit pretty hard with the fluoride. They're like, yeah, you need to have this, and the brainwashing that they receive throughout their uni education is usually pretty strong on the fluoride.
Yeah, I'm sure it has benefits for your teeth, but I think or I don't know, maybe it has benefits for your teeth, but I think the downsides of it is not really worth it.
Well,
Like
yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that
third
with
eye and pineal
yes,
gland.
exactly. We're talking about the potential psychic capacity of humans, and then it's like, well, why would there be this push for fluoride? And I mean, do you actually have fluoridated water in Sweden? I don't think you do, eh? I
Um,
think most
I
of
don't
Europe
know.
doesn't. Yeah, I think
That
you're pretty good for that.
I can't actually answer that question, but I almost always use my filtered water bottle. I bring it to work. I bring it with me everywhere, and I need to get a can or a jug with a filter because I don't know about drinking the tap water. I feel like I've just lost so much trust for everything. I don't really want to drink the tap water.
I don't blame you. I mean, tap water here in England is most of it's not very good, and they're trying to put fluoride in it. So I don't know. And my experience around the world, tap water has never been very good. It's always, unless someone's got like their own spring on a piece of land, or you just get bottled water, or they've filtered it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't think you have fluoride though, as far as I'm aware, which is a positive.
great.
Yes.
A friend of mine actually goes out and gets like water from this nature reserve, and he bottles it and he drinks that, which is pretty cool.
That's probably the best damn water you're gonna get, eh?
Yeah.
I can see why you do that. I've done that. I've been staying when I was in New Zealand. There was this farm, and they had a stream at the bottom, and I was literally doing that. So I can understand why he's doing that.
Yeah.
Cool. So is there anything
Mhm.
else you'd like to tell us about the situation in Sweden, or about your own life and what you've experienced, sort of going through the awakening journey, or anything else?
Um, I just, I guess I would just like to say that I urge people to start not just looking at things, but seeing what what's happening, and start asking more questions, and um, realize that if you're only looking at one side of the narrative, that you can't possibly have the whole truth. Um, yeah, maybe I'll leave it at that.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining me, Minnie.
Thank you.